What is going on, everybody? It's Jeremy Martin from Cinco.medicos. I'm a little tree swing, and today I want to talk with you about chronic stress and ecotherapy. And why are we so stressed? How can ecotherapy improve our health? And why does nature help us to restore balance? How and why do we use ecotherapy in nature during plant medicine ceremonies? And so I'll start off with a little personal anecdote. I was down by Lake Champlain here in beautiful Vermont, and the goal was just to sit with myself all day. I called it Project Do Nothing, and all I brought was a water bottle, a yoga mat, and myself. And for the first few hours, by the shore, I was sighing and stretching and getting up to put my feet in the lake and really just struggling to stay still. There wasn't anything to do. And so even, for a nature lover and one who enjoys rest and relaxation, I was pretty uncomfortable. After a few hours, I stopped resisting and I laid down on the beach. I watched the sky, I listened to the lake. It was cloudy, the birds were singing. 100 yards ahead of me, a loon's dipping in and out of the water, which is all glassy and reflecting the clouds. And there was no wind. The bald eagle actually flew away from its nest. I saw a great blue heron a couple minutes later, and it was just beautiful. A classic summer day. And yet, as morning transitioned to afternoon, the lake really woke up, and motorboats and lawnmowers and airplanes were all just buzzing together like one big engine. And so, there was like a hiker talking on her phone. A jogger ran by, with earbuds in, looking almost completely unaware of where he was, and a kid sat down and played on an iPad. The point is, what was so enjoyable to me, the lake, for being the lake, the woods and the trails for being the woods and the trails, had to be added to and cluttered with all these toys and chores. There was a real palpable feeling of stress in the name of progress. And when humans have something, we always seem to want more of it, right? If we have money, we want some more money. If we have a house, we want a bigger house, or maybe a second vacation home. We worry that sometime in the future what we have will not be enough for our needs. In other words, we're anxious and afraid. The prospect of loss, which is inevitable, really just terrifies us. And so that really brings me to anxiety and stress in general. If anxiety is excessive worry due to our imagination and anticipation of future outcomes, stress is the feeling produced from a perceived lack of control about said outcomes. And so the solution to our anxiety then is not more progress, but less. And that's because progress comes from an active mind. Presence is the result of a still mind. And those who favor progress will always worry about what they don't or won't have, and thus will never ever have enough. Those who are happy with what they have will always have enough, and they'll find more. I think Oprah said something like that. But stress, therefore, can be best diminished by becoming more aware, not less, about what's happening now. And ironically, most of us, when we experience stress, we tend to want to become less aware. We may seek distractions in the form of news and entertainment. We may numb out with substances or food. We may seek something to do, as we saw by the lake, so that we don't have to be with what is. And Alan Watts put it this way, for the animal to be happy, it's just enough for this present moment to be enjoyable. But man is hardly satisfied with that at all. He's pretty much concerned with having either enjoyable memories or expectations, especially the latter ones. And with those assured, he can put up with a very miserable present, but without this assurance, he can be extremely miserable in the midst of immediate physical pleasure. And for human beings, the past and the future are not as real, but more real than the present moment. I see this with my cat, He's fine pretty much wherever he is, and when he's not fine, he tells me. It's very wise. And anyway, that's mostly a segue to stress and our need to control our environment. Most of us know, either through experience or intuitively, that less awareness about what is causing us to feel stress is not really helping us to feel better or calmer or more peaceful, and yet we do it anyway. And after all, why would more awareness of a situation that's causing us to feel stressed and anxious make us feel more at ease? That seems kind of counterintuitive. And the reason is quite simple. It's because less awareness actually decreases our sense of control. Less awareness decreases our sense of control. And stress is exactly that, a lack of perceived control. And more awareness, more presence helps us to understand that which we can control and what we cannot. In other words, it all comes down to turning our focus away from external circumstances that lie beyond our control and toward the inner refinement of our own character. So with presence, our awareness grows, and with awareness, our sense of internal control grows. That's really all we have control over. We understand, in other words, I think Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, said, there are those things in the world that are up to us and not up to us. We see how useless it is to worry about the past or the future, first because neither truly exist, except in our mind. Only now exists. And what we can control, as our awareness grows, we start to understand more clearly, because it's a much better use of our time to understand external nature in a rational way, those things that are not up to us, that we cannot control, and use that understanding of our internal nature in tandem. So with the sense of internal control and understanding of external nature, we can then conform our actions and attitudes to whatever is happening around us, and it doesn't matter if there's war and the economy is crashing. Those things are out of our control because of their natural causality, and any effort to try and control them is irrational, frustrating, and pointless. What matters most is that we are aware of what is up to us internally, and as our sense of internal control grows, our stress just disappears. We realize what Einstein said, that the world we've created is a product of our thinking, and it can't be changed without changing our thinking. We need to change our thinking if we want to change our world. But first we need to be aware of what our thinking even is to start with. Which brings me to the next point, that safety is really an inside job. Nothing outside of us can ever make us feel safe, ever. Being on this rope swing, am I safe? I don't know. I have to feel safe in order to think I'm safe. And really, rather, it is our mind, our judgment that the rope swing is safe, our motivation, our volition, that either make us feel safe or unsafe. Now, fortunately, there's a good part of this story. Our mind is entirely up to us. Indeed, it is us. If we focus on our powers of self-determination and do not allow the world to serve up these desires and aversions to us, like with social media or the news, we can keep our own will, our own decisions and choices in harmony with nature, both our own nature, internal nature, with human nature, and the universe or the world to which we belong. And that is the true key to well-being, in my mind, and not just my mind, but many other people's minds. So how do we achieve harmony with nature then? First, let's start with anxiety. Such anxiety could be over the state of the world. It could be the fear about the future just in general, as in generalized anxiety. But you could substitute any problem. Next month's rent, whether you have food shortages nationwide or worldwide, whether you have enough money to save for retirement, it doesn't matter. Every one of these maladies is in the psyche's obsession with time travel, with escaping itself and trying to control external nature instead. And as ayahuasca showed me once, these are just exhausting fantasies. They're just tricks of a fearful, restless mind. And I could choose to play the same tricks on myself and be fooled by them again and again, or I could see the tricks for what they are, just projections which prevent me from enjoying my life now, and then I could just liberate myself from them whenever and wherever I want, at the drop of a hat. It's all my choice. And that's the good news too. Either way, it's a choice. Whether it's a conscious choice is up to me, which is why cultivating presence and growing our awareness are so vital to better mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. The more aware we are, the better we can realize that dreaming about tomorrow is pure escapism from the pain that we fear today. We can understand how our ego self constructs this false future out of empty expectations, or a past out of regretful memories. And to free ourselves from that prison whose walls and locks and keys we've created, we have to constantly remind ourselves that reality is just a matter of our perception and interpretation of what we can and cannot control. If we succeed in this, if we succeed in thinking this way, we can walk around knowing that life happens now and not later. And we can stop being so desperately worried about where we need to be, because we know that once we arrive there, we would arrive with the same worried mind and be anxious yet again about where we need to be, and so on down the line, just in a different place. And that kind of reminds me of a childhood story when my father would take us to this lake up in Maine, and we would typically go to the lake just to relax and rest, and the aim supposedly was to get away. And but quickly my father would have all these projects to put the dock in the water, to weed whack the path, to set up the hummingbird feeder, to get fuel for the boat, to go water skiing, clean the grill. There was just really no rest or relaxation. It was just all activity. And unable to still his mind internally, my father reflected this disharmony in his external environment. And inevitably our family would return home, at least this is how I remember it, as tired, if not more, as if we'd escaped everyday life in order to just get exhausted in a new and more beautiful place. And so that personal example I'm only using to illustrate a point, right, about harmony with nature, and about our anxiety, about safety being an inside job, and about life happening now, not later. And the fact that perception drives behavior. If we perceive the world as stressful, we're going to fight it with anger and violence, or flee from it through distraction. If we perceive ourselves as not good enough, we're going to seek to prove that we are by posting a selfie where we look better than we actually do, or buying some stuff that we don't need, or doing something that makes us look good and important in the eyes of others. If we perceive knowing who we are as terrifying, we're going to escape ourselves with all these endless chores like mowing the lawn, games, like water skiing, errands, things to do, like endless activities. And obviously we have to do some things, right? You have to clean your room every now and then. But the point is that isn't all what life is about. The frenetic activity and noise on the lake that I shared earlier was a product of frenetic, noisy thinking. Our stressful behavior is a product of our perception of the world as stressful. And that in turn is a feedback loop, because I too felt stressed by other people's constant doing. As the lake became busier and louder, there was this fizzy carbonation in my nerves, tension in my muscles, and I felt a desire to flee, which was really just my sympathetic nervous system's flight response due to my perception of threat. And I even noticed that the chipmunks and the birds flew the coop too. The point is, our thoughts are vibration. And it may sound woo-woo to say that emotions and thought patterns like joy, peace, and acceptance create high frequency vibrations, while other feelings and mindsets such as anger, despair, and fear vibrate at a lower rate. But the simple fact of the matter is, vibrations affect both physiological and energetic responses, whether we're using our voice, singing bowls, tuning forks, mantras, binaural beats, or a lawnmower, airplanes, and the other examples that I used, right? My body, which is vibration, was responding to the vibrations in my environment. And the physics of sound has demonstrated that each substance in our world vibrates at its own natural resonant frequency. All elements of our physical and emotional bodies have this same sonic property, including cells, brain waves, emotions, vibrations, whether they're electromagnetic, whether they're sonic, light-bound. All of them can facilitate healing or disharmony and even growth in the body. And research has shown, for people who think this is woo-woo, that breathwork, yoga, safe touch, healthy relationships, certain kinds of music, meditation, gratitude, generosity, diet, and outdoor immersion can all improve human health. They can lower stress and blood pressure. They can reduce fatigue and cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone. Pain sensitivity. They can lower your risk of cardiovascular and respiratory diseases. They can help you live longer, basically just improve your mood and have a better, richer life and more of it. And give us that sense of emotional safety and psychological well-being from within. And neuroscience and dream researchers know this too. They know that the brain is constantly producing these bursts of electrical activity, synapses essentially, whose electrical pulses are known as brain waves, each of which operates at a different speed, from fastest to slowest. It's like gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta. And one possible way to influence your brain and its production of those waves is by listening to certain things, by being in a certain environment like nature. And the field of cymatics, which is the study of visible sound and vibration, has demonstrated this as well. That sound influences matter and molecular structures. And you can look at disease as a form of disharmony. There's no organ or system in the body that's not affected by sound and music and vibration. And that's why, in shamanism, which has existed for thousands of years, far longer than science, we have singing, chanting, drumming, rattling, all of which are essential to healing and connecting with the spirit world. Ayahuasca shamans sing Icaros as a vibratory intention and sophisticated technology, which together with the medicine transforms illness into health. And Huachumeros, or those who work with San Pedro, often use a rattle at ancient sites because certain rhythms harmonize the energies of the place and the people with their heartbeats and other pulses that are present in the body of the individual. And it's this harmonizing of bodily rhythms that attunes one person with the others in the group, or the person who's leading the ceremony, to co-regulate. And if someone is traumatized or dysregulated, they can be regulated by that shaman. And this rhythmic entrainment is the whole vehicle used by spiritual leaders and tribal elders, not just to move into the spirit world, but actually as the alchemy of healing. And if that sounds a little bit far-fetched to you, well, people are doing this in sound therapy with singing bowls and other instruments, where the practitioner is bringing harmony to the body through oscillation and resonance, and helping you to restore your body's natural balance, and in turn help you to heal, just with more modern techniques. So let's just return to the lake as we close my little TED Talk here. Because I had been vibrating with the water, the woods, and the birds, in harmony with the nature and my own internal nature, I could easily see just how out of harmony other people were. And it's kind of similar, like a fish in water. People in New York City, they don't really see how out of harmony they are with nature because they're in New York City. Whereas someone who goes from New York City to Vermont is going to be like, wow, I'm so much more relaxed. And so the visitors that were kind of mobbing the lake, they were so separate from the very thing that they appeared to want to engage with, and were and are nature. They went to the lake, into the woods to relax, but they filled it with things to do, stuff to say, places to go, and other ways to feel. And like I said, it reminded me of my father doing the same thing as a kid. This is endemic to human behavior. This pattern of internal disharmony is why we see so much external disharmony. That could be outrage on the internet, wars between nations, people honking their horns on the street, domestic abuse, emotional neglect, addiction, just any disordered behavior that is not in our highest interest and health. And humanity's need for more resonance and coherence is exactly why psychedelic plant medicine experiences are so beneficial when they take place in the heart of nature. And here in nature, a person can be free from distractions, they can be free from clutter, free from obligations, and if they so choose, again, it's a choice to be free from anxiety and worry and fear. And in this setting, the participant can more easily see that it is their mind that is causing them to feel upset or afraid. And it isn't something external outside of them that's the problem. It may have been initially, and that's what caused the trauma and the internal dysregulation, but now it's the internal dysregulation that needs to be attended to in an external environment that helps them to co-regulate the best with a person that they can trust. And so ecotherapy therefore allows guests to more easily harmonize their own frequencies with more natural rhythms. And by raising their awareness with the medicine, they can begin harmonizing their own internal nature with a more peaceful environment. And over time, the sense of separation, which is merely an illusion anyway, disappears. And as we become more resonant with our surroundings, more vibrationally coherent within, we become healthier, lighter, and happier, and that's kind of the whole goal. And that allows us to be more productive if we want to be. That allows us to do and to be in balance. And so anyway, that's the end of my ecotherapy spiel. If this sounds like something that you're interested in, feel free to get in touch. Visit my website at cinco.medicos.com. Email cinco.medicos@protonmail.com, or just fill out the contact form. All right, love everybody. Peace.